What is good, Mexit planners? It's hurricane season, y'all. But what was the last major hurricane to hit Merida, and how often do major hurricanes hit this area of the country? Find out in this week's Yucatan News Weekly update. Let's get it. Thank you for joining me for another edition of the Yucatan News Weekly update. Today we got a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. So starting with information about public health, the first case of monkeypox has arrived in Mexico from a New Yorker visiting Mexico City. It is suspected that this person contacted the disease in the Netherlands. The patient is currently in stable condition in isolation in Mexico City. A team of researchers sponsored by Oxford University is currently working within the Lucas de Galvez and San Benito central markets in Merida to find new viruses that could become the next pandemic. They're collecting samples from animals and doing testing and genome sequencing of the pathogens. Merida was chosen as one of the sites because it could serve as a model for what happens when the disease spreads in larger cities. They're looking for things like the bird flu, the human flu, and also dengue in the two markets in Merida. Updating information about the COVID virus, the fifth wave of COVID-19 has arrived in Yucatan, but with very low frequency. Officials warn that the fight against COVID-19 is not over, and we should continue the sanitary measures that we've had in place. They see this as a new wave because in March and April, there were days where 0 cases were reported, and now, since the end of May, we have anywhere between 75 and 100 new cases reported daily. Just yesterday, on Thursday, they reported 177 new cases with 8 people in the hospital and 1 fatality. Fortunately, there haven't been a lot of fatalities, but this new increase in cases per day is definitely something to watch. In other news, switching to pet health, with the heat brings more cases of rabies. This is definitely the time of the year to make sure you and your pets are vaccinated. If you're watching this video because you're planning to move to Merida, be sure to check out the Creating Your MexitPlans course. It's full of detailed information in one centralized course that will take you from your initial planning all the way to 6 months after you live in Merida. The link to the course is in the description below. The Atlantic hurricane season started on June 1st and will continue until November 30th of 2022. And it started with a bang this year, with the first storm being Tropical Storm Alex, which went between Quintana Roo, Cuba, and swung over to Miami. They're expecting anywhere between 16 to 21 tropical disturbances this year, of which 10 to 11 of those will become tropical storms. They're also expecting as many as 6 Category 1 or 2 hurricanes and as many as 4 Category 3 to 5 hurricanes. There hasn't been a direct hit of a hurricane in Merida in over 20 years, which was Isidore. So let's hope that the streak continues. In this area of the country, you can expect a major storm about every 15 years. We've been blessed. Let's hope it stays that way. In a recent People poll, the question was asked, are you prepared for the hurricane season this year? 47.1% of the people said yes, and 52.9% of the people said no. During our first major storm here, I went out to the Ace hardware store and bought all kinds of things like headlamps and batteries and a bunch of other things we didn't actually use. Leave me comments below and let me know if you're interested in seeing a video on what should be in your emergency kit for hurricane season. Switching gears to development in Yucatan. One of the big success stories of the Tianguis Turístico that just took place a few weeks ago is the addition of new flight routes to and from Merida. There are 5 new routes that have been added. The first are new flights to Felipe Ángeles Airport in Mexico City, a direct flight now from Merida to Guanajuato, a new flight from Merida to León, Mexico, and a new flight to Las Flores. Also, there are now flights to Guatemala City several times of the week. The new routes will be serviced by Vivo Aerobus, Volaris, and TAG Airlines. Volaris is one of the low-cost carriers here in Mexico. Those folks stole my money, so I don't think I'll ever fly them if I can help it. In other transportation news, this week President AMLO arrived for his monthly meeting to inspect the works of the train Maya and to announce the construction of the La Plancha Megapark. The La Plancha area is the area in Merida that was originally going to contain the stop for the train Maya. However, this area of Centro has seen significant reinvestment in the colonial homes on the east side of Centro. The Megapark is going to increase the value of those homes homes and properties in that part of the city tremendously. The plans for the mega park will include a lake with boats and several district gardens for children. There are lots of cenotes in this area, but no real lakes here in Merida, so that's a pretty big thing. The president also confirmed in a new development that the Federal Electric Commission has already contracted with the companies that will build 2 new thermal electric generation plants in Yucatan. The first stage of both plants will be operational by the end of 2023. One of the reasons that will ensure that these plants happen is that the Maya train will be electric between Merida and Chetumal. Now, Merida will get one plant and Valladolid will get the others. There's going to be 2 big thermal electric generation plants in the Yucatan that happen mainly because of the Mayan train, but also to generate more electricity capacity for the state. The cost of electricity in the Yucatan is 17% higher than the rest of the country. So having 2 new electric generation plants will be huge, hopefully, to help with all of the development that's happening, as well as the Mayan train and perhaps lowering the cost of electricity in this region. More news on development. The House Expo that I went to a couple of weeks ago had over 5,500 people attend in person. The Housing Expo was a big success, and they're planning to do one again this fall in October. Stay tuned for the exact dates. I went to visit one of the projects that I saw there. Unfortunately, all we saw was land, but it was a good way to get an idea of what was being built around the city. In other development news, a very large project known as the Infinity Merida project that was going to be built in one of the most affluential areas of the city between Monte Cristo and Montebello has been stopped. All construction has been halted and all permits have been revoked by a judge recently. The project was going to include 7 apartment towers, 15 floors each, with a capacity of 620 apartments and 1,200 parking spaces. This was going to make an already congested area absolutely insane. This project was located next to Parque Kalia and just south of the Super Chedraui, or as the expats call it, the Whole Foods Chedraui. It's also just blocks away from some of the biggest houses in Merida in the Monte Cristo neighborhood. So not just in Merida, but also in Progreso, there's continuous development. In Progreso, the works of the Malecón are now complete. The last of the pavement was poured this past weekend, just in time for the Navy Marathon that was run last Sunday. The Malecón is really starting to look world-class, similar to other cities like Campeche. They are installing over 160 palm trees on the Malecón. If you visit Progreso, say 2 years ago, you may not recognize this Malecón because it looks completely different. It has definitely been improved, and it's definitely a place to be proud of. Speaking of new attractions in Progreso for cruise ships and other visitors, the Jurassic Path officially opened to the public on 6/8/2022. Now, the cost of the Jurassic Path is 200 pesos for foreigners, 100 pesos for those 3 to 10 years old, 150 pesos for those who are 11 to 17 years old, and 200 pesos for adults. Local residents of the Yucatan only pay 50% of the prices listed above. In other attractions coming to Progreso, the proposed floating aqua park in Progreso will use about 7,000 meters of public beach. There's going to be an area for children 7 and under, and then the general area for those over 7. They will have floating attractions in the ocean, and the park will be located on the west side of the small pier in Progreso near the new skate park. In addition to announcing the La Plancha project, AMLO is also here to inspect the deepening of the port of Progreso. The Yucatan is being positioned as a great destination for companies that want to move their supply chains closer to the US and Canada. With the global pandemic causing supply chain problems with Asia, the Yucatan is positioned right next door geographically and connected to the US via the Gulf of Mexico, and it has a direct path out to the Atlantic Ocean. This geographic advantage, along with the Henneken plant, is what made Yucatan one of the wealthiest places on Earth 400 years ago. Perhaps this geographic advantage will once again propel this state. This week, Merida is hosting the Smart City Expo, which I talked about several Yucatan News Weekly updates ago. And one of the projects that was announced is the La Tram electric tram project, which was announced by the governor at the Smart City Convention. This project will be a combination of state, federal, and private investment, and it will connect Canacine and Uman to the center of Merida as part of the Veni Va project. This tram will be all electric, and it will reuse the old railway land or path that's already in place. This is a key project because it might also connect the new airport, which is going to be located in Uman, just south of the city of Merida. They will have between 20 to 30 trams of 12 meters long that will accommodate over 105 passengers. It is estimated that a weekly capacity of over 500,000 people, or 20% of the folks that use public transportation, will benefit from this tram. Also announced this week in the Smart City Expo is a plan to expand the use of bicycles here in Merida as an alternative form of transportation. Cycling is already a big form of transportation here in Merida because there's over 50 miles of bike lanes. The city is also extremely flat. They're proposing tax incentives to help businesses that will allow their employees to ride their bikes to work, say like once a week. As the city grows and expands, incorporating more forms of transportation will be very important. Merida doesn't currently offer like rental bikes or scooters, but I can see this changing overnight. Speaking of changing overnight, there will not be a need for COVID-19 testing when entering the USA from Mexico beginning on Sunday morning at 12:01 a.m. This is just in time for my trip to Europe, which I'm connecting through Atlanta, so I'm happy to hear that. Also, in a change this week, SAT or SAT extended the deadline to get RFCs for another 6 months. Let me explain. So the Tax Administration Service, or the Mexican IRS here, is called SAT, SAT. They extended the deadline for the Electronic Invoicing 4.0 system from July 1st to January 1st, 2023. This rule had it required all legal residents over the age of 18 in Mexico to have a new RFC number issued, which is the equivalent of your Mexican Social Security number for tax purposes. The Electric Invoicing 4.0 required that the RFC for each individual person be added to the official invoice known as a factura so that you can receive your tax deductions in Mexico. If you want to know more about what's happening in the Yucatan, check out this video over here. Until next time, this has been MexitPlans Monty. I'm out.